Hi, lovely humans. My name is Emily, and it is an honor to welcome you back to the Language Wellness and Identity Podcast. If you are new, I'm so glad you're here. I created this podcast as a complement to my YouTube channel, Language Travel Adoptee, and here I seek to give you the tools and perspectives you need to value the language learning process, even when it gets hard. But here we do not talk about the strategic ways to learn a language because there are already a lot of them out there already. We get down to the more vulnerable parts of the language learning experience, right? Being vulnerable by acknowledging mistakes, but being brave anyway, building a resilient mindset for our setbacks and disappointments, giving voice to different language stories that do sometimes involve trauma, not fitting in, questions of belonging. If you are looking for an unpolished, unapologetic look into the language process, I am here for you, and I want you to know you are not alone. Your story matters, no matter where you are in your journey. Now, if you are feeling down in your language journey currently for any reason, I have something super special that I made just for you. Check out my free cheat sheet for the resilient language learner so that you are able to make language learning easier, ultimately on yourself and your mind. Don't wait and go check it out in the show notes below. Now sit back and let's begin. Now, what is our topic on today? Well, I was thinking as I was recording and kind of looking back at some of my previous YouTube videos and kind of reminiscing about the old times, right? I was looking back at some of the videos that I already made private on YouTube because I was not proud of the video quality, but I am planning to upload an interview entirely in Italian. And this is an interview that I did back in 2020 with my Italian guest. I'm super excited for sharing that with you guys. But I was also thinking, wow, I am so jealous of how I was manipulating the language and how flexible I was in the Italian language. And why am I using the subjunctive really in a sucky way now, right? Like I am not using it in the right way. I don't understand it anymore. But 3 years ago, like I'm so jealous of my past self because I could understand it perfectly. And I could even impress native speakers with how I used that grammatical concept that usually for me is one of the hardest things when I'm learning a Romance language. You guys will definitely know what I mean if you have studied Italian or any other Romance language, I'm guessing. But I was looking back at that. And then, of course, those questions that I had in my mind, and I guess really being jealous, and maybe I'm talking about being more envious, right, of my past self, because those thoughts led me to thinking about, wow, I'm so jealous of my past self now because I want to speak German the way that I used to. I want to speak German the way that I think I remember myself speaking as well, even 7 years ago. And I want to let you know that you are not alone. You have probably had some of these thoughts as well. And I wanted to make this a really big point for all of us because I think all of this talk on the internet tells a lot of us fluency is the only goal, the only thing that matters. And I think all of these debates on, especially what I saw about 7 years ago when I was on YouTube and all of these language polyglots who spoke like 10 to 15 languages were all the rage. They still are. This whole debate on, are you a polyglot if you speak 10 languages, but you're only a beginner, intermediate, everything else, what counts as being a polyglot? You know, I took those kinds of debates and I internalized it and thought, well, maybe I should take everything and just run with this idea of fluency, what my idea of fluency was, which was a perfect C2, really advanced native-like level in each language, which also led me down a road of perfectionism. I started with this idea after I discovered that I really loved learning German, and I went the furthest that I could. I mean, going to a German university, studying abroad, majoring in German, I think even being the president of my German club when I got back from being abroad. I did everything, and I did the same thing with Italian because I wanted to be the best in the language. And I want to give, I think, 4 reminders to you. I have my notes right here, but I just remembered a 4th one that I want to talk about, which I'm going to bring up in a second. But I really want you to think about, if there is any part of you that has been envious of what you, in your language learning, have accomplished in the past, right? I want you to know that that is totally normal and that we can definitely find a way to use those feelings to our advantage. So I think the first reminder that we all need to have is that those life circumstances were so different from where we are now. I mean, I had less financial worries. I had a lot more time on my hands to learn languages and really get good at them. I look at university students now and I'm like, I am so jealous of you because they still have a lot of work, and being a student, and I guess having that time, that perceived time that I feel like I had more when I was a student rather than being an adult in the adult world, I felt like you do have a lot more time, even though there are pressures to get good grades and find out what you want to do in life. I think that, just being an adult and transitioning into this more of adult life with more responsibilities and really having to fend for yourself out on your own, that brings a whole set of challenges. And language learners don't really talk about that, right? They don't talk about the very different circumstances that we are all under. And I've mentioned this before. A language learner who has 3 kids already, and they are working, they don't even have the privilege of working at home, right? And they're trying to tend to everything. They're married. They have a lot of other responsibilities. Maybe something broke in the house, right, that they need to immediately take care of instead of dedicating time to a language learning session. Maybe they can only fit in 10 minutes throughout the day to each language, which is currently what I'm doing because I am really busy. That is going to look a lot different, and their progress and their mindset about language learning and the strategies they use even are going to be so much different than what a student would use or what someone who is only working part-time, who is living with family, is going to use. And this is not putting anyone down. I am just really trying to say here, there is such a big contrast in how our personal life situations will influence our language learning situations. And of course, I was jealous of my past self being like, oh, I got access to places abroad. I had different environments. I had other language learners around me who were constantly inspiring me. I passed my C2 German speaking class. Yay. I got compliments all the time from outside sources. Yay. I got a lot of the comments of, wow, you speak so many languages. I wish I did too. And that comment led me to think the only thing I was valuable for was how many languages I spoke. And I needed to speak the most in the room. And I needed to keep on striving to hit a number that I didn't even know I wanted to reach. Maybe I wanted to reach 10. Maybe I wanted to reach 13. I had no idea, but I just knew that I needed to learn more in order to still feel like I was valuable to other people. Now that is the key. So I'm going to talk about this too in my next point. I want you to remember, whenever you think about the past and your past self, remember things aren't as rosy in the past as you think they were, right? We tend to romanticize the past when it is uncomfortable to simply be and accept ourselves in our present situations. And I think given, right, studying abroad for me and being in that environment when I was around 18 to 21, being in that environment awakened to me to what I was able to do. And I proved to myself that I could live alone, I could be independent, I could learn a language or 3, I could do a lot of what I didn't think I was capable of doing before 18. But at the same time, I was still very stuck in the perfectionist mode. I was getting a high on compliments that were externally validating me instead of really practicing validating myself first and foremost. And when you are searching for external validation, I think in any sector of your life, you really have to come back to yourself. Think about what your values are. Remind yourself of what your values are. And if you aren't really sure, and if you think you need to reevaluate what your values are, then really take the time to sit down with yourself and reflect. That is so important. And it really carries us more throughout life than a language learning proficiency level or telling how many languages we can speak will ever get us. My third tip is that you have so much more to offer as the person you are now instead of who you were before. Because while language learning skills will always ebb and flow, even daily, right? Your soul, the essence of who you are, has always been blooming, and you are more resilient than you were before because of your past experiences, because of your discoveries, and because hopefully you are getting closer and closer to the truly authentic side of yourself. I love advocating for that because it was only in the last 2 years that I discovered how important that was for me. And, getting to know yourself better than anyone else. This is what I have to remind myself of, as well as I'm reminding you of this right now. And I think You always have to prove to yourself that you can do it, and you have already, right? You can learn a language with your desired method, whether that is by yourself, in a classroom, through exchanges, through immersion, etc. You have also experimented with what hasn't worked for you. And that is okay if it hasn't worked for you. Now you know, because you are still here and you are still learning a language. Now remind yourself that things will work out, right? Because you have been so resourceful up until this point. There is no reason that you won't use that same skill again now and in the future to really help you. And I think once you do learn a language or two, it is truly your mindset that will keep you going, right? Are you being kind to yourself? Are you giving yourself grace? You can have all the resources in the world for every language and still hit personal difficulties along the way. I personally felt like this with Spanish, where there are so many resources to choose from. It is going to be unending. There are still new resources coming out for those really popular languages. Same with French, same a little bit with Italian, definitely with German. And it is your resilient mindset that will help you continue on with your language journey ultimately. It's not those resources, no matter how great they are for actually teaching you the language itself. It's your mindset that you need to also concentrate on to get through it. Now, if you do not know exactly what I mean, I want you to know that I have created this special cheat sheet for you. It is called the Language Learner's Quick Fix Mindset, the Resilient Language Learner's Quick Fix Mindset. That is going to be the most important word here for resilience. Get it now so that you know more about what I'm trying to say in this last point, and also so that you can ease the language learning process. It will ultimately make everything easier with your mindset and more enjoyable for you on your language learning journey. Access to this is in the show notes below. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this pretty short episode, because I think, when inspiration strikes me, I have to talk about it in the moment. I'm about to go to work, but I wanted to touch base with you guys and really make sure that to give you this reminder, I need to give this reminder to myself, which is also why I like speaking things out loud. And again, if you have not, check out my personal private Facebook group, the Language Mindset Reset, as a Facebook group. And I will also include it in the show notes because I want to create a community, a much stronger community that does not just focus, right, on the study materials. And I think it's so important to remind all of us that if we are not getting something that a resource is giving us to learn our language directly, it is not that we are incapable. It is because we have to take care of ourselves outside of these language resources that give us clear steps, because sometimes there are no clear steps and you have to experiment. You have to know what works for you, and you definitely need these reminders. So I want to provide that for all of us. Make sure, don't be afraid to reach out at my email address or on any of my socials if you want to speak about this more and the topic or any other topics that I've covered. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see each other next week.